The lab reports are going to be graded based on some rubric. And in my case, I have the abstract, introduction, experimental method, purpose, data, result, discussion, and so on. So I'd like to talk about these a little bit in more detail. The part that I focus a lot is this abstract part. Abstract is something you will be writing a lot when you work somewhere in a lab, in an office. Then you will be writing an abstract a lot. And it's basically emails to your colleagues, to your boss, and things like that. Of course, you will have to write a very long report about all your results and analysis and so on. But even though you attach that in an email and send it to your colleagues, but you still write like a few sentences about that, right? Because you know that it's too long and they won't read. So you want to summarize, you want to highlight what you need from there. And that's the abstract. So in the abstract, it has to be a concise summary of all aspects. This is an important thing, all aspects. And what all means is why you did this, what you did, what you got, and what you need from others. Okay? Please include a few numbers in there. You don't need to dump all the numbers you got in that abstract, but just a few numbers. Let's say I did a bunch of these experiments and whatnot and so on and so on, and I got very good result and I improved the performance by 33%. Put that number there. Or I measured whatever temperature and I finally reached down to like 27 degrees Celsius or something like that. So just a few key numbers in there. Okay? And many times, especially for junior engineers, I see this thing is missing. And it's just very natural because you are doing that every day. You know the purpose of what you're doing. Or maybe you don't know, but you should know. But because you're doing that every day, so you just want to talk about what you did and what you've got. But when you send something to your boss, think about it. Your boss manages the whole team and they have like 6, 7, 8 members. And they all have slightly different tasks and goals. And managers generally know about them. But if you just suddenly dump everything without talking about why you did this thing, then it's a little bit like, okay, wait a second. Give me a little bit more context. That kind of question you're going to receive a lot. Okay, so having this purpose statement is very important. Like, this was the problem, so I wanted to solve this issue. And the way I solved that issue is by doing this. So I got these results. And I told you guys, junior engineer usually focus on these, but this is also a very important part. So you got this result. And then I want you to make some conclusion and provide that conclusion to your colleagues or boss. So this is good. This is bad. I need some more time. This is good. So let's move on to the next step. Get my point? Like you did a lot of good things and then you did whatever work that you were supposed to do. And you just talk about, I did this, I did that, I did this, I did this. And then after I listened to all of them, my question is, okay, so what? Like, what do you need? Okay, you did good, but what can I do for you? Right? So you want to mention, I did all these things, which means it's a very good result. So let's move on. Or I did these, but it was still, I need some more time, or I need this more resource. Please purchase this thing for me, or I need more time or person or whatever. That kind of thing you need to also provide in your abstract. All right? And this part students do very well, but what I'm looking for is slightly different. So I wanted to highlight that. You may want to start your introduction by using a purpose sentence. So when you're starting a introduction part, just use this sentence as your first sentence. The goal of this lab was to do blah, blah, blah. the goal of this task was to understand blah, blah, blah. Just have that sentence as the opening sentence. Okay? I see many of the students use yeah, resistor was invented in 14th century by blah, 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 and then it is very important in these days and blah, blah, blah. You use some historical whatever something as an introducing sentence, which is good. But for our report and in your engineering reports, you may want to use the purpose statement first. Okay? And I would like to see some equations in your introductions, some relevant equations in your introduction. You don't need to show all the equations, but just a few equations that may be related to the thing you did in that lab. Okay? So those are the keys. And this is tied to the introduction. So have that purpose statement as your first sentence. And then the next part, experimental method, this is all good. Okay. In the lab report, I am not expecting to see a lab manual. You don't need to write super long, like 5-page experimental method. Like I clicked this, I turned this thing on, and then I did this, I did that. You don't need that. Okay. Just very roughly speaking, if back to that lab number 1, we measured the resistance using a multimeter. It was like 30 1 kilo ohm, and I measured 30 of them, and we combine all those using the whole lab, and then I use Excel and MATLAB to analyze these. And that's it. Okay. Also, please include some figures, schematic of the circuit you design, or a picture of whatever you created, something like that in the experimental method. That way we can see what's going on. All right. So that's another thing that I want you guys to remember. All right. And then we have this data section, result section, and discussion section. So discussion is slightly different, but student might think, hey, what's the difference between data and results? And I also agree with that. What's the difference between those two? So when I am grading these, I'll consider it like this. So data section is more like raw data, unprocessed data, okay? And results are something you extract from those. So back to the first lab number 1, let's say we measured a bunch of those resistance values, right? And then from there, you have like 100 resistant value. You can maybe put all those 100 there, and from there you draw a few graphs. Maybe that is something you can use as your data part, okay? And from that data, you extract some values like the mean, standard deviation, or whatever the confidence range, or those things that was required as deliverable. You can put those in your result part. Okay, does that make sense? So data section is more like raw data, and result part is something you extract from the data. Okay? And discussion part this is a very important part. So you need to do some more analysis based on that. Not just putting some numbers, what you got, but you need to find the trend of this, or something you learned about what you did, things like that. Like for example, in lab number 1 again, if we had multiple graphs and you see as you change the bin size, the graph, even though it's the same data, the graph slightly looks different, and there's a trend of doing like that, it can misguide the reader, or whatever, okay? Or the confidence range I found was this value, but the theoretical value should have been this, and they are slightly different, or they are very similar, and they fall within the range, or it was out of the range, so it's good or bad, or something like that. Okay, so you need to provide some of your analysis in there, and also talk about the experimental uncertainty there as well. Okay. And conclusion. So conclusion part is almost same as your abstract. You need to show why you did this thing, purpose statement. The goal of this lab was to do blah, blah, blah. So I did blah, blah, blah. And based on that, I obtained these things. And you need to show this was good or this was bad. Or it makes sense. It is within the range of something, or it was out of range, and something like that. Okay? And there are a bunch of these different categories, but when I'm grading the reports, I'm not going to actually check all these individually. I'm not going to check the quality of the visual individually and then grade it here, and then quality and relevance and connection to the visual and how many graphs you had or grammar. Those things I'm not checking specifically, but this whole part will be graded as a single lump, and that's going to be based on my impression. If I read your report and I see this was written clearly, and I can see some efforts was put in there, and it was, the graphs looks legible, and if it looks like a good report, then you get full credit. But if it's looking, I can't really read something in there, or your graphs look very bad, or then you will lose some points. Okay, this part is going to be very qualitatively measured, because report is, again, like, you guys know about that resume thing. Like you might have heard, you need to format your resume very well. That one page thing, you need to make sure the line spacing and the font and size and whatnot, they need to look very neat, because you want to look good to others. Same thing, the reports as well. If the report was, even though it was containing very good Nobel Prize winning worth result in there, but it was written very poorly, then people might think, oh, this guy or this person didn't really know, or they don't want to read this thing through, and so on. So that's another important part. And the abstract part, again, this is a concise summary of all the aspects, purpose, and conclusion. These are the common things that I see missing from many students. So make sure that you are including these as well, and some numbers in there. You want to make it like a movie trailer. And how about you guys take a look at this? This was one of the abstracts from student report. And how about you think about how we can improve this thing? It's based on lab number 1.
Standard deviation.
Mm-hmm.
Solve for it would be a start.
Sorry, what was your point?
Including the
Uh-huh.
up things, but not.
So you want to include some numbers in there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Any other ideas?
It's like a general format.
Uh-huh. So use like the third tense type of thing. Yeah, I agree. Okay, yeah, objective. Like I said, use that as their starting sentence. The objective of this lab was to do blah, 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 or understand blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I agree. Anything else? Yeah.
Any takeaways?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I agree. So what, right? You just provide a bunch of numbers and then that's it.
Yeah.
Right? So you want to show, hey, this was good, this was bad, I need more, or whatever. Okay? Oh, by the way, a few things that I want to mention. When you are writing the conclusion, okay, please do not write like your diary, like this lab was good, or this lab was bad, or I learned a lot, or something like that. I'm glad if you learned a lot, but just keep that in on your own. Like it looks a little bit childish. Okay, so just try to be professional in there. And about that third perspective, that writing, I agree with that. On the other hand, sometimes you might want to use this I and we stuff as well, like especially when you want to stress, I did this, or our group did this. So generally you're writing in that third perspective, but when you want to focus or like emphasize this part, this is done by our group, or I measured this, or I did this, we did this, something like that. Just a few points. That way it looks a little bit strong. Okay, depending on the cases. All right. Okay, so this is something I updated slightly. So move this objective of this lab was to blah, blah, blah. And then we measured these. And then we found these values, just like she said, and just like he said, these fall in the tolerance of the manufacturer. So it can be something good. All right. So I hope this becomes like an example for you and helpful in writing your reports for this course and in your future as well. Any questions up to here?